Don't just watch your sink die slow. Here's the deal. I'm going to walk you through the best way to unclog your sink, why sinks clog in the first place, how professionals decide what kind of blockage they're dealing with, and what actually works when you want the drain cleared without making things worse. And yes, there are a few things most people do that only push the problem deeper. You turn on the faucet, and for a moment, everything looks normal. The water gathers in the basin, spins once, twice, and then drops a little too slowly. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just a bit of soap, a few crumbs, a strand of hair, something small that will sort itself out. But sinks rarely fail in one dramatic instant. They warn you first. A little hesitation at the drain. A faint gurgle after the water disappears. A smell that shows up for no obvious reason and then vanishes when you least expect it. That's how a simple clog turns into a messy backup, a stained cabinet, or a repair bill that feels much bigger than the original problem. A sink is not just a bowl with a hole in it. It's a small drainage system with a trap, bends, joints, and narrow sections where debris loves to settle. Water can move through it, but only if the flow stays strong enough to carry soap scum, grease, food particles, toothpaste, hair, and mineral buildup along with it. The moment that flow weakens, residue starts sticking. Grease cools and clings. Soap mixes with hard water minerals and turns into a film. Food scraps settle in the low points. Hair catches on rough surfaces. Little by little, the pipe loses space, and the sink starts behaving like it's tired. That's why the best way to unclog a sink is not just about forcing water through a blockage after it forms. It's about understanding what kind of buildup is inside the line and removing it the right way. Professionals know this. They don't just ask, "How do I open it?" They ask, "What caused it? Where is it sitting? And why did it form there?" If you want to save yourself thousands of dollars in problems, we have a complete guide for you in the video description or in the QR code on the screen. Use it as a reference when you're checking the basics, because the right information at the right time can keep a small sink issue from turning into a full repair. If water takes longer to leave the basin than it used to, something is already narrowing the path. If you hear gurgling, air is struggling through the line. If there's a smell that comes and goes, residue may already be breaking down inside the pipe. If the sink works one day and drags the next, you may be dealing with loose debris shifting around instead of one solid clog. This is where people make their biggest mistake. They keep using the sink as if the slowdown is just a minor inconvenience, or they reach for the strongest product on the shelf and hope chemistry will do all the work. But a sink that drains eventually is telling you the system is under strain. A professional would usually start with observation. They'd look at the drain opening, check for visible buildup, and notice whether the problem is only in one sink or shared with nearby fixtures. That's because the first hidden trick is not force. It's pattern recognition. Kitchen sinks are where people accidentally create the most stubborn clogs. Hot oil looks harmless when it's liquid. Sauces rinse away easily. A few crumbs seem too small to matter. Then, the line cools, and all of it starts sticking together. The hidden trick here is to treat grease like a solid waste item, not a liquid. Let it cool in a container. Wipe pans before washing. Scrape food into the trash or compost before it reaches the drain. That one habit can dramatically reduce buildup inside the sink line. Now, here's where things go sideways. People think hot water solves grease. It doesn't solve it. It only moves the grease farther down the pipe before it cools again. That means the clog may not form right at the sink. It may form deeper in the line where it is harder to reach and more expensive to clear. And that's the real hidden cost. The clog you don't see is the clog that grows. By the time the sink slows enough for you to notice, you may already have a layered deposit. Grease, soap, crumbs, starch, and sediment packed together like wet cement. When that happens, Dumping more cleaner into the drain is not a strategy, it's a delay. Bathroom sinks have their own enemy, and it shows up in small amounts every day. Toothpaste residue, shaving cream, soap scum, hair, and skin oil all work together to create a sticky coating inside the drain. Hair is especially troublesome because it catches on rough edges and forms a net that traps everything else passing through. The hidden trick here is mechanical, not chemical. Use a drain cover that actually catches hair and debris before it reaches the pipe. Clean it often. If the sink already drains slowly, remove the stopper or cover and clear the visible layer before it gets pushed deeper into the line. A plastic cleaning tool, a small hook, or a simple drain wand can do more than a bottle of liquid cleaner when the problem is physical buildup. Why does this matter? Because many chemical cleaners are weak against compact residue. They may soften some soap film, but they do not remove a dense hair mat. Worse, if they sit on top of the blockage, they can create the illusion that something is happening when the clog is still there. The water drains a little better for a while, then the problem returns. Professionals know that if a bathroom sink clogs repeatedly, the answer is often not more chemical. It's better capture at the opening, better cleaning of the visible trap area, and a proper line clearing before the buildup becomes a hard plug. When a sink starts making noises, it is usually trying to tell you something. Gurgling can mean air is getting trapped behind a restriction. Bubbling can mean the line is partially blocked. A slurping sound can mean water is pulling through a narrowing passage. If more than one fixture is involved, the issue may not be only the sink at all. It may be a venting or shared line problem. This is one of the hidden things professionals pay attention to first. Noise is information. It can help tell you whether the blockage is local or systemic. A single slow sink might only need the trap cleaned. A sink that gurgles when another fixture drains may point to a deeper line issue. A sink that backs up when the washing machine runs is a different kind of warning altogether. The trick is not to treat every sound as the same. Listen for when it happens, which fixture causes it, and whether the noise gets worse under load. That pattern helps narrow the search dramatically. The best way starts with the least aggressive method that still matches the problem. First, remove visible debris from the drain opening. Then, if the sink has a stopper, take it out and clean the parts around it. Many clogs are concentrated right there, and people miss them because they look deeper into the pipe too soon. If the sink is still slow, use controlled water flow to see how the drain responds. A proper flush is not about flooding the basin. It's about moving loosened material all the way through the line, instead of just shifting it around. If water drains better for a few seconds and then slows again, you probably have not cleared the obstruction. You've just moved it. This is also where a plunger can help, but only if you use it correctly. You need enough seal and enough water in the basin to create pressure changes. A weak, air-filled plunge does almost nothing. A focused plunge can break up soft buildup or move debris through the trap. The key is control, not force. And if you already know the sink line is old or sensitive, don't treat harsh chemicals like a badge of honor. Old pipes can be damaged by repeated use of strong products, and a clogged sink is bad enough without creating a leak on top of it. Most people think the problem lives down there, somewhere out of sight. But the area under the sink often tells the real story first. If there's moisture around the trap, staining on the cabinet floor, corrosion on fittings, or a faint odor inside the cabinet, the issue may be more than a simple clog. That's why a quick inspection under the sink is one of the smartest hidden tricks you can use. Look at the trap, the joints, the supply lines, and the cabinet base. If you see water trails or dampness, you may have a small leak that is attracting grime or masking a bigger problem. A line that leaks slightly can also behave differently inside because the flow is no longer smooth and sealed the way it should be. This matters because a drain problem and a leak problem often feed each other. A slow sink can encourage standing water. A tiny leak can create odors and stains that hide the real blockage. The result is confusion, and confusion makes people delay action. If you catch it early, you may only need a cleaning and a small fitting adjustment. If you ignore it, the cabinet can swell, the seal can fail, and the repair becomes a lot bigger than a sink unclogging. A recurring clog is not random. It has a cause. Professionals do not just clear it and leave. They want to know why it came back. They check the trap first, because that is where debris often settles. They check whether the pipe has enough slope, because poor pitch lets residue sit instead of moving out. They check for venting issues, because bad venting can create sluggish drainage and gurgling. They check whether the line is too long, too narrow, or joined in a way that encourages buildup. And they look at whether the problem is isolated to one sink or showing up elsewhere in the system. This is where unclogging becomes a diagnostic job, not just a cleaning job. The smartest hidden trick is to think like a diagnostician. Don't just ask, "How do I open it?" Ask, "Why is it clogging here?" If a kitchen sink always clogs after heavy cooking, the issue may be grease management. If a bathroom sink slows down constantly, the issue may be hair and soap. If several fixtures act strange at once, there may be a vent or mainline concern. That distinction saves time, money, and frustration. When a sink acts up, the temptation is to throw everything at it at once. Chemicals, boiling water, plungers, snakes, more chemicals, more water. That is how simple problems become complicated ones. The better approach is to stop, observe, and choose the least risky method first. If the sink is only slow, start with the visible opening and clean the stopper or strainer. If the clog is deeper, use a tool appropriate to the pipe and fixture. If the issue is recurring, inspect for the underlying cause instead of repeating the same quick fix. Sometimes, the hidden trick is knowing when not to keep pushing. If you meet hard resistance with a small drain snake, forcing it can damage the pipe or compact the blockage. If you use too much cleaner, you may not remove anything and may only add chemical risk. If you keep running water into a blocked sink, you may overflow the basin or leak into the cabinet. That's why a calm process wins. Clean the opening, test the flow, listen for sound, check for leaks, check for recurrence. Only then decide whether the problem is local or deeper in the system. The best way to unclog a sink is to need fewer unclogging sessions in the first place. Use strainers where they belong. Remove hair before it enters the bathroom sink. Keep grease out of the kitchen sink. Don't treat the drain like a trash can for food scraps, coffee grounds, or thick residue. Clean the stopper, the cover, and the visible parts of the drain regularly. Once in a while, inspect the cabinet under the sink for moisture or odor. If you want, one simple habit that helps: use warm water and a mild cleaning routine after normal use, especially in sinks that handle food residue. Not boiling, not harsh, not overdone. Just enough to discourage buildup before it hardens. The key is prevention, not punishment. And if you want the deeper version of these methods, with a clean breakdown of what to check first and what to avoid second, I'd strongly suggest using the complete guide in the video description or the QR code on the screen. It's the kind of reference that saves time when you're standing there wondering whether the sink needs a quick reset or a real intervention. The hidden truth about sink unclogging is that most of the expense comes from waiting too long, guessing wrong, or using the wrong fix for the wrong problem. The money is lost in the gap between "it's a little slow" and "now it's overflowing." So the smartest trick is not a miracle chemical or a secret tool. It's learning to read the sink before it fails. Slow drainage, gurgling, smells, recurring clogs, damp cabinets, and unusual noise are all clues. Each one tells you something about where the system is struggling. Once you know that, the whole picture changes. A kitchen sink clogged with grease needs a different response than a bathroom sink packed with hair and soap. A single slow basin is not the same as a whole house drainage problem. A clean-looking drain is not always a healthy drain, and a quick fix is only useful if it solves the actual cause. So here's the recap. Keep grease out, catch hair early, listen for noises, inspect under the cabinet, flush properly, and treat recurring clogs as a clue rather than a nuisance. Those are the best sink unclogging habits that matter most, and they're the same ones good plumbers rely on when they want to solve the problem instead of just chasing it. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Sinks do not usually fail because of one huge mistake. They fail because of a series of small ones that were easy to ignore. Stop the small ones early, and the big repair never gets a chance to happen.